Hey YouTube, I'm Kenneth Ryan.
I'm Linz.
And we're back with another exciting episode of Fanfiction Friday. This week we will be picking up where we left off in Star Wars The New Galaxy by Cloud411. Yeah, I think we could just jump into it. I don't know.
Let's see if he kills his
Let's
sister.
see if he kills his sister. Alright, you can start.
Okay, because it's another chapter of your characters.
Which most of them are.
Yeah. Okay, chapter 32. Rituals. Ooh. Is he going to sacrifice her? That'd be interesting. Stacy lay in the chair, fast asleep in front of Salvador. He gripped his lightsaber hilt tightly in his hand. He placed his hand on her shoulder slowly. He shook her slightly.
Wake up, he told her.
So he didn't kill her yet.
She stirred away and looked at him. You've healed already? She asked, rubbing her eyes. I'm never down for long, he replied, attaching his lightsaber to his belt.
That's a hero line.
Oh, my congestion. I'm so sorry. She stretched hard in her chair, then stood up and stretched standing up. She brushed her shirt and looked at Salvador. What now? She asked. We get what I really came here for, he replied, walking out of the room into the hallway.
So she's a shirt now and not her Jedi robe?
Or she had a shirt on under the robe. I don't know.
And she took her robe off now?
I don't
she couldn't
know.
have done before. Yeah.
What do you mean? Stacy asked, trailing after him. I thought you came here to kill the Sith! That was one of my objectives. That's not the voice. That was one of my objectives, he replied. The other is to get something from this castle, he added. What else exactly did you come here to get? She asked, keeping up with his pace of walking. Documents, he answered. Oh my god. This is hard. This is hard. What kind of documents? Search the castle and make sure no one else is alive, he ordered, not answering her question. She watched as he picked up his pace and quickly outwalked her and vanished beyond a corner of the hallway. She stood there for several seconds before walking down another hall. She had to go through this entire place and make sure no one was alive? Easier said than done. The castle is huge. Salvador walked down the hall and stopped beside a painting of an ancient Sith Lord. He placed 2 fingers on the bottom right edge of the painting, and the piece of the gold folded back into the wall, and the picture began to move to the right. The whole section of the wall that the painting was on slid aside to reveal a secret doorway. So unrelated, my sister moved into an old house, like over 100 years old, and it has doors that like hide in the walls and can slide out. It's the coolest thing. Cool, yeah. It is the coolest thing, and that's what this is making me think of. You don't push a button though; you have to like manually pull it, but it's really dope.
Nice.
Salvador stepped into the doorway and reached out with the Force. He felt several unlit candles in passageway, and using the Force, he lit the candles so several tiny flames danced in front of him. Don't know if the Force works that way.
Yeah, but also candles isn't a good source of light for like a hallway. Torches, yes, I guess, but
candles, no.
Tiny flames.
The flames illuminated a path of solid stone that descended down deeper in the wall. He took a few steps down the stairs when he heard the doorway behind him slide shut. He continued his descent down the stairs. The stairs started to twist and turn about 50 feet from the doorway. If his guess was right, then what he was looking for had to be down here. Darth Storm had told him of ancient Sith rituals that hold untold power for the user, or in some cases, users. He spoke of the secret passage that Salvador had entered. He told him several years ago that even though a few Siths knew where the passage was, it would only open for the most powerful Siths. After his horrible defeat by Darth Palin, Salvador had doubted that the passage would open for him, but to his surprise, it did. Now he was walking somewhere that not even Darth Storm had the power to get to. He continued walking down for several long minutes until he could see a dim light ahead of him that was clearly not the tiny flames that danced on both sides of him. He picked up his pace at the sight of the light, anxious to see what secrets the secret room had to offer him.
Okay.
Did I write that line? I can't wait to see what secrets... Oh, roommates. The dim light grew a little brighter as he saw the end of the staircase several meters ahead of him. The stairs ended in an archway that was full meter taller than Salvador. He slowly stepped into the room and looked around. He was in some form of library. There were dust-covered books on old bookshelves on all sides of the room. The room was fairly big, bigger than he thought it would be. Feeling a tremor in the force, he spun around towards the archway he had just walked through. The instant he looked at it, a massive stone wall slammed over the opening in the archway, trapping Salvador within the room.
Ooh.
Dust
Indiana
flew
Jones.
up from the ground at the impact of the giant stone wall slamming shut.
Or National Treasure.
Or National Treasure. Indiana Jones, that was the really obvious one. He held up the sleeve of his robe to cover his mouth from dust and dirt. After the dust and dirt had settled back to the ground, he removed the sleeve from his face and turned around to face the room. He slowly walked forward, confused as to where to begin his search. He scanned the bookshelves, trying to read the bindings of the books to see the titles, but he could not tell. They were either too covered by dust or too worn down to read. He walked over to a bookshelf and grabbed a book off of it. The cover of the book was nothing but a giant surface of dust. He blew air from his mouth onto the book and coughed as he was bombarded.
Opposed to, like, his nose.
Yeah, I guess it was specific to know. As he was bombarded by a very thick cloud of dust. Pathway to the True Power of the Dark Side, the front of the book read. He flipped it open and glanced over a couple pages. Worthless,
I doubt it.
he muttered, throwing the book to the ground.
That's a secret to all
To
power.
ultimate power. The book kicked up more dust and dirt when it hit the ground. He continued to pick books
Use the
at
force
random.
to clean. I don't know why.
Question: does dust gather even when people don't go into spaces like that?
Probably.
Because isn't most of dust dead skin cells?
Quite a bit of it, yeah, but like.
So like it does,
It
but
does
like
still
not
gather.
really. I don't know.
Like when you, like, are moving or something, people put like the plastic things over furniture so dust doesn't gather on them.
Got it.
You know, when like people are packing up houses or
Mm-hmm.
abandoning a house for a long time or something.
I got it. He continued to pick books at random and flipped through them before deciding they were worthless and throwing them to the ground. He was starting to get frustrated and also probably diseasing himself. There were at least a few hundred books on these shelves. It would take him forever to go through them all to find what he
That's
was
a lot of
looking
books.
for.
You know, like in the new Star Wars movies, they've got like those couple books in the weird tree and the weird.
Are you talking about the newest one?
Yeah,
I've
sure.
not seen the newest
I don't know
one.
if it's in the newest one. It might be in the newest one.
I was like, this doesn't sound familiar, so I think this is in the newest one. Which I still have yet
like
to
it's
see it.
kind of older because it's not like the Solo movie or anything.
Well, yeah, but like
But yeah,
I still haven't seen
there's
that
only
one.
a few sacred texts or whatever.
Not according
And
to
now
this.
there's hundreds of books in the Sith compound.
Yeah, the Siths are great.
They might not be all force powerful, but
We'll see. I'd like to think one of them's like Paula Dean's autobiography cookbook
yeah,
or
it's
memoir.
great.
I own that, and I'm so excited to read like what's going on. And anyways, in a sudden spur of anger, he kicked over a bookshelf. The bookshelf slammed on the ground, throwing up more dust and dirt. Salvador didn't even bother to cover his face and protect it from the incoming dust and dirt. He was too angry to care about that. He stood there, transfixed on the wall that the bookshelf had been against. The entrance to another passageway sat before his eyes.
Real books.
The passageway had been hidden perfectly behind the bookshelf. The bookshelf itself was much bigger than the passageway, providing a perfect cover to keep the passage concealed. He took several slow steps through the opening. At his fifth step into the passage, a massive torch lit up about 10 meters away from where he stood. The statue of a man in a robe stood on both sides of the torch.
So are there two statues, or is there one statue, like, standing over
Around,
it?
like over it. I don't know.
Whatever.
On both sides of the room were several old scrolls lined up on shelves along the walls. He walked over to one of the shelves and picked up one of the scrolls. Unlike the books in the other room, these scrolls were not harmed by time or dust. They were perfectly preserved, as if they were just written. He slowly unveiled the scroll in front of him.
Unraveled.
Oh, unraveled. A wide smile spread over his face, and the chamber echoed with his booming laughter.
It's not a very heroic laugh, but ha ha ha.
Well, he's a villain.
Yeah. But he's the hero voice.
He does have the hero voice.
Should I start reading
Yeah,
randomly?
go for it.
Chapter 33. Close. Okay. Stacy had finished checking
That's
the
not
castle.
close?
No. Maybe. It might be close.
C-L-O-S-E and C-L-O-S-E?
It could be either
Close
close
and
or
close?
close.
I don't know. Okay. We'll see what it means.
So either
sorry.
close, as in
They're
near to
close
something.
or close the door.
Yeah.
Got it.
Stacy had finished checking the castle of all life. There were no other living people in the castle besides her and Salvador.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Like, for all life or something. Just checking the castle of all life.
Right.
She sat down on a chair that was in the middle of a library-type room and sighed. Is it the secret passage library?
Oh my God.
I doubt it. That'd be funny. Blah, blah. She had no clue what was going to happen now. No clue how Salvador was going to train her or what he was going to train her.
Okay.
How or what he was going to train her.
Okay.
What she did know is that she had to take what he threw at her, complete it, then succeed it. Uh-huh. She also knew one more thing. She would not become like Salvador. She would embrace the power the dark side offer. She would use it, bend it to her will, but she would not become a killing machine like he is. She would not kill senselessly, and she would not be unmerciful to everyone. I mean, whatever. Salvador didn't seem like the type of person to accept anything but success. Pure, hard success. Victory might be a better word.
Yeah.
She would do her best to stay on his good side and learn all she can from him. Then, when she is more powerful than him, she will kill him for killing Joe, a man who would become a second father to her.
Oh, that's her plot.
But you were just really super angry at Joe 4 chapters ago. 5.
Well, now she's gonna get some vengeance. Damn, Stacy.
Like, hey, it's my brother. There's possibly still some of him left inside.
I guess she's decided
Like,
not.
nope, I'm going to kill him. I'm just going
Yeah.
to train under him and then kill him.
And then kill him, like a true Sith.
Yeah.
Let's go, a voice said behind her. She turned and saw Salvador standing behind her, his face partially covered up by a black traveling cloak he had somehow acquired. She stood up from her chair and walked over to him and stood next to him.
Okay.
They walked out of the castle and back down the long staircase that led to the castle.
Why don't you just live in the castle?
I don't know, because that'd be too smart.
I mean, sure, you have a different castle.
They do?
The first one that they were in, and then they went to this castle, remember?
Oh, yep. Wow, as they walked down the long staircase, the night sky began to grow dim with light from the slowly rising sun. Salvador walked several feet ahead of Stacy, his mind thinking about all he had learned while in the secret chamber. He had learned how to end this war and eliminate all non-force-sensitive humors and creatures from his planet.
Wait, he's gonna kill all the humans?
He wants to.
I forgot about that. He's gonna kill
He doesn't
everyone.
care about anyone. He
So
would
he's
use...
literally killing everyone but like himself.
Oh my god.
And animals.
He would use that weapon when the time was right, not a moment sooner, or else it
I
could
want
turn
him to
against
use
him
it.
and easily
I want
destroy
him to
his
use
very
it and
existence.
destroy every human on the planet.
We'll see. I hope he does too. His next task now will be to find a Jedi powerful enough in the light side of the Force to contribute to his plan. But where was he going to find a Jedi with that strong a connection to the light side? Your sister?
Next line.
Stacy would have been a good choice, but in the end she chose the darkness instead of the light, so that was out. He needed to find another one with a stronger connection than even she had. But
Hey,
where?
Crystal.
The Jedi were masters at hiding and hiding in plain sight. He would have a very difficult time finding a Jedi for one, and a Jedi with that strong a connection for another.
Hey, Crystal.
What are we going to do now? Stacy asked a few feet behind him. I'm going to start hunting down Jedi, he answered. You? She repeated. What about me? There are several small Sith outposts spread out. You're going to find those outposts and kill all the Sith that occupy them, he answered. Just the Sith, right? She asked. Kill everyone inside the outposts. Leave no witnesses, he replied.
Are people other than the Sith going to be in the outpost? I mean, sure, there'll be some children, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like
But if it's an outpost, probably not.
Nah, I don't know. I think, man, homie, I don't know. We'll see. Stacy was silent for a moment before answering, Right! Salvador threw her a piece of paper that was hard for her to catch due to the breeze flowing through the air. "Those are the locations of the outposts," he stated. "Report back to me when you have completed this mission," he ordered. "Why are you going to hunt down the Jedi now?" she asked suddenly. "None of your business," he shot back in a hard voice. Deciding that it was smarter to let the matter drop, Stacy answered, "Yes, master!"
Why is she suddenly calling him master?
She's a Padawan again. Salvador watched as Stacy walked
He didn't
off.
tell her to call him master or anything.
Yeah. I don't know. I think she's just doing it. Salvador watched as Stacy walked off in the opposite direction. He watched her until her figure faded into the distance. He turned and started walking in his direction. Before he woke Stacy up in the healing room, after he had gotten out of the healing tank, he had gone digging in her mind for the location of a Jedi hideout. He had found one of the major ones, in fact. He continued down the stairway until he reached the bottom step where a motorcycle sat waiting.
Just a random motorcycle at the Sith compound.
This is anime like motorcycle montage moment where he drives through the city.
It's a castle with like torches and paintings and libraries.
Swords and a
swords
motorcycle.
And a random motorcycle.
He sat down on the seat and kicked the kickstand up. He punched the engine on and roared off into the distance. He reached inside his traveling cloak and pulled out a pair of black sunglasses and threw them over his eyes. "Oh, you.
He just has sunglasses.
Oh, you with your sunglasses."
It's like dawn. Why do you need sunglasses?
He's an extra bitch. He's a fucking Sith Lord.
Uh-huh.
The Jedi hideout was actually not that far from the Sith castle. The wind whipping through his hair, Salvador thought the best way to gain entry into the Jedi hideout. From what he got from Stacy's memory, the hideout was a massive cave with many tunnels and corridors in it, and it was heavily guarded by Jedis.
Is it the one there that Crystal memory in already?
I think so.
So it's not that far away. She's going off on her vengeance adventure, and it's like a 20-minute drive.
Damn.
That's funny.
Excuse me. He would have to be tactful if he wanted to gain entry without revealing who he really was. Going by what Stacy said when he first told her his name, the Jedi knew of Salvador's existence, but did not know what he looked like. He could use that to his advantage. They knew his name, but not his face. Darth Salvador was just a faceless person to them. A tiny smile appeared on his face. He rode for about an hour until he saw the cliff face that the cave was located in. He stopped and parked his bike a few miles from the cliff face. He stepped off the bike and kicked the kickstand down. He reached inside his cloak and removed the blue lightsaber he had taken from Stacy when he first took her from the hotel room.
Is that not the one that she cut in half with the red lightsaber?
It's not. I guess maybe she cut Joe's. He rode for about an hour. He used the Force to dig a hole in the ground next to his bike and threw his red lightsaber in it. He used the Force to cover the hole back up with the dirt and smooth it out so no one could tell that the sand had been recently disturbed. He clipped the blue lightsaber to his belt and Force dashed towards the cave where the Jedi were located. He dashed his way closer to the Jedi cave. As he dashed his way closer to the Jedi cave, he could feel the Jedi inside. Most of them just had standard connections to the Force, nothing special. He sensed a few of the Jedi had a very strong connection. Maybe one of them had the strength he needed. He reached the bottom of the cliff and looked upwards at the hole in the side of the cliff. He used the Force to jump the full distance between the ground and the opening. He landed neatly in the opening and looked around. At his landing, several Jedi had whipped out and activated their lightsabers. Salvador did not respond to their actions, but merely stood in the doorway, his arms at his sides. You can be all of these.
Reveal your identity, one of the Jedi demanded.
Jedi Knight Charles, from the southern front near Kyoto, Salvador lied.
I think this is your one lady.
Wow. Oh, it is. Ah, yes. A female voice said, walking through the crowd of armed Jedi. We've been expecting you, Knight Charles. The woman stepped forward.
His name is Charles, randomly.
Yeah.
Wait, is he just making this name up, or was that person mentioned somewhere?
I don't know. I don't know where he thought of this. Maybe he pulled this out of her brain, too.
And also Kyoto?
Yeah. Oh, Charles from Kyoto.
Why is there a Jedi in Kyoto randomly?
Why not?
I mean, yeah, they can be all over the world, but that's weird.
Yes. Shoot. Where are we? The woman stepped forward. She was old. She was an old woman, mid-50s, but she had the body of a teenager and the face of a younger woman.
How do you know how
of a
old
younger
she is?
woman. The only thing about her that showed her age were wrinkles that appeared on her body. My name is Madame Evelyn.
So
the
she
female
is
Jedi
a
introduced
wrinkly
herself.
body, but it's also the body of a teenager.
Yep.
Okay.
Pleased to meet you, Salvador replied with a slight bow. Welcome to the cave, as we call it. Not much when it comes to technology, but strategic advantage and strategizing are best here, she added. That's what I was told, he said. Follow me and I'll show you to your temporary quarters, she said, motioning for him to follow her. The Jedi had lowered and deactivated their weapons. Salvador followed her down several tunnels until they stopped outside of one of the doors to the tunnel wall. Unfortunately, this is the only room we had to offer right now, she said. I heard this place had ample space, Salvador replied. We did, but we've had to double up since one of our masters were killed and his apprentice gone missing.
Is that the other way then? Wouldn't you have more rooms if you suddenly put everyone in, like, pairs?
I think double up just means double the amount of people here.
I guess. If they just brought everyone in, I guess.
That's what I'm guessing. She answered. We're still trying to find her. This room will do fine, thank you, Salvador replied with a slight bow. I'm sure you are briefed on why you are here, correct? She asked. Yes.
No.
Good. Begin preparation to start your mission at once, she ordered. Unfortunately, you are only going to be able to get a few hours rest, she added. This mission of yours is top priority.
Oh, he's... Okay.
I understand, he replied. She's very valuable to our cause and our victory. Do try and get her back safe and sound, she said.
So now he's been
I will.
to find Stacy.
You have my word, he replied with another bow. She turned her back to him and walked off down the tunnel and vanished behind a corner. Salvador walked into his room he had been given. The room was more spacious than it looked, and it was big enough for a pretty good-sized bed, a table in the middle, and several shelves on the walls. It was now time for him to begin his mission.
Ooh.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh, ah, ooh.
Is he gonna kill Evelyn to, like, drain her power to do this ritual or whatever?
I hope not. I hope not.
How long have we been in?
Like 20 minutes.
30 minutes? Okay. Chapter 34. Darth Lomas?
Yeah.
Lamas?
Sure.
Lomas. No tengo mas.
No tengo.
Stacy could feel the Sith outpost getting closer as she continued to drive along a long and deserted road. Going by the information Salvador had given her, the outpost was no more than 3 levels high and 1 level low, with approximately 35 Siths occupying the outpost.
That's more than the castle.
So, yeah, at the castle. Oh, I can't go alone because I can't fight 32 people without being
But let's
scarred.
put Stacy against more, and she's weaker than I am.
Yeah, Stacy's weaker than me, but I'm gonna send her to a place with more people. Possibly
Plot
stronger
hole.
people, too.
Plot hole.
Maybe she'll ninja her way through
Maybe
it, I
she,
guess.
yeah, maybe she will. We'll see.
But yeah. Occupying the outpost. Salvador had gone to that Sith castle to eliminate the Siths there, that was for sure, and to get whatever else he was after. But she could feel that there was a deeper reason behind his return to the castle. Perhaps a nostalgic reason. No, he wanted the documents.
Yeah, he wanted docs, bruh.
There's no, no hint or anything that he's there because, I remember my 8 years spent training under this
He's
tree.
like, oh no, I'm gonna fucking...
Cry.
Right,
the
be
memories.
sentimental.
Oh, no.
No.
She shook her head as she continued driving. She could not afford to let her mind get distracted by things such as that. She needed to stay absolutely focused on her task at hand. She would be facing real Siths and real combat. She needed 100% of her to be there, in the moment, or else she would die. Gasp. She stood her car several miles from the outpost. The outpost was building into the base of a mountain that was nearby. From this point on, in order to avoid detection until the last possible moment. She would need to go the rest of the way on foot. She got out of the car and started her walk across the desert-like landscape. The landscape leading up to the base of the mountain was basically a desert. Extremely hot, nothing but sand, no vegetation aside from that occasional cactus. So, they were by the ocean.
Yeah.
In a cliff.
Yeah.
And it's been how long? And she's suddenly in the desert?
No idea. No idea.
Near the desert by mountains?
Yeah, no idea.
What mountainous desert region is anywhere near New York?
With castles, I can't answer that question.
Unless they traveled from New York to somewhere really far away to the castle, I guess, but...
Maybe.
That first castle was like a couple hours by boat / whatever.
I don't know.
I'm not sure about their geography / map going on here. There was nearly no life in the desert area. The only life were hawks that flew overhead in the bright sunlight, lizards that scurried away at her approach, and snakes that slithered away from her. It was very humid out. That's not how deserts work. Humid.
Yeah, they're dry.
I mean, but then when it does sometimes rain, but then it's like flooding everything because they can't absorb the water. But yeah, okay. And with no precipitation nearby, she had no water and no way to rehydrate herself. Okay, so it's not going to rain. So, humid, no. Salvador had failed to mention that one of the outposts was in the desert. If he had given her that little detail, she would have been sure to grab some water before coming, so she could at least stay hydrated. You have, like, a map or GPS.
Mm-hmm.
You should know it's the desert. Okay, my phone. She had never hated the sun more than at this moment. The sun was like hell itself, a blazing inferno of heat with no source of cool air. Her face was getting drenched in sweat, and her clothes were starting to stick to her slim figure. She used the force to keep her strength at a high enough level to where she could still walk. She had to make it to the outpost. What? You're gonna, like, collapse once you reach the outpost. And then be captured or something.
Yes.
Okay, whatever.
Yes, she is.
During all her training with the Jedi, she had never had to go through anything like this. Then it wasn't great training, honestly.
No.
She started to wonder if this was a part of her dark side training, or if this was just fun for Salvador. Both. Either way, whether it be training or just a tease, it had to be done, and she would not complain. She was starting to think of Salvador as her brother less and less as she began to know him. He had changed too much for her to think of him as such. Wasn't it just like a couple chapters ago where you're like, oh, I can still...
Yeah, yeah.
I realize that no matter how much he has changed, he still is my brother. We still share the same blood.
Yeah.
Whatever. But now she's like, oh, I'm getting to know him more.
Mm-hmm.
And he's even less my brother.
Yeah.
Even though you already thought he wasn't your brother.
This author kind of does the thing where everyone changes their mind very subtly.
Yeah. Clockwork. Their parents would be so ashamed of how Mike had let his anger and hatred consume him, informed Salvador. But wouldn't they also be ashamed of her? That question was like a knife through her heart. She'd eventually fallen to the dark side and sworn her loyalty and allegiance to it, just as Mike had 8 years ago. Was she no different than he was now? No! She was nothing like Salvador. Salvador killed for seemingly no reason. And even though she would have sworn her allegiance to the Sith, she would not become what he had become, a machine of death and destruction. She would control the dark side, not let the dark side control her. Okay, sure. After what felt like days, but was merely only about 20 minutes of walking, she saw a silver gleam ahead of her. It was the sunlight reflecting off a piece of metal. She was very close now, only a little further, and she would finally be there. Now she was starting to think of ways she could get inside without raising alarms or suspicion. Or if that was even possible. With all the Sith that Salvador had killed so far, whether or not the other Siths knew he was behind those incidents are unknown. So it would be unwise to state that she is an apprentice of Salvador. She knew none of the Sith. She knew nothing of how they operated. She only knew their powers, and that's it. She decided that she would need to be frontal about her objectives, and just fight to kill them all without trying to be something she wasn't.
Oh no.
Okay, she's just gonna kill him.
So you're gonna do the Salvador approach. Yeah. I see.
Apparently. As she got closer to the gleam, it slowly took shape into a metal door. She slowly walked up to the door. Why is this door just sitting out in the open in the desert?
I don't know. I don't know.
Her slowness in walking was both caution and exhaustion. She would need to use the force to give her strength when she started her attack. She walked up to the door and banged her fist against it twice, so she's just knocking.
Yeah.
Why knock? Just break in. She could hear footsteps on the other side getting louder as they got closer to the door. The door slid open and two robed, hooded figures appeared.
Yeah?
Yawn. What do you want? One of them demanded. Stacy thought of what her answer would be. Then the most logical one came to mind. She whipped out her lightsaber, and before the other two could react, she cut them down.
Your death! She whispered as she took several steps into the outpost.
I'm not going to become like Darth Salvador. I'm going to control the dark. The dark won't control me. What do you want?
Your death! Die.
Die, motherfucker.
Oh, God. The moment she was inside, the door slid shut behind her, and she was blasted by a wave of cool, cold air. She closed her eyes to the wonderful feeling of the cold air, using the wonderful feeling to help return her to her full strength. After several seconds of soaking in the new air, she opened her eyes and started her walk down the hall. The hall was nothing but metal. Metal wall, metal floor, metal ceiling. She quickly came to the conclusion that this place is going to be nothing like the castle was. She stopped at the end of the hall, where two other hallways branched off from it.
Where?
One to the left and another to the right. After a moment's contemplation, she chose the right way and started her walk. As she walked, she could feel a sense of caution building up in the structure. Clearly, they had sensed the disappearance of two of their own.
Well, now they can sense that someone's been killed.
Oh my god, I know, it's so inconsistent sometimes. That would mean that they are going to be on guard against an intruder and be ready for an inevitable attack by an unknown party. She held her lightsaber at her side as she made her way down the metal hall until she reached the end. She stood in front of a massive door and reached out with the force to feel what was behind her. Behind her?
Ahead of her?
Do you mean like behind the door?
Maybe that.
Her ability to feel behind it was blocked by a stronger force inside.
So clearly, why are you going in when you can tell they're stronger?
She's got a death wish. I don't know. She slowly pushed...
Killed. Have Mike try and get revenge again, even though he was thinking about killing her himself 2 chapters ago.
We'll see. We will see. I cannot predict where this is going.
Darth Lomas, obviously.
Right, of course. She slowly pushed open the door and was blinded by massive darkness. The room beyond the door was completely dark. No way to see anything, not even your own hand in front of your face. A beam of light shot down from the ceiling ahead of her. There was a staircase leading several meters off the ground, and at the top of this staircase sat a throne-like chair. Sitting in the chair was a broad figure. The figure sat in the chair, as if sitting in the chair did not tell you. She could feel the person's eyes staring at her.
Why do you come here? The figure asked.
I've come here to eliminate the Sith that reside here! Stacy answered.
You say that? You must feel pretty confident about your abilities to openly state such an objective, the figure replied.
I am! She answered.
Then I look forward to see if you can fulfill what you have come here seeking to do, the figure said, standing up. The figure was a woman with long black hair. She's broad, okay.
Yeah?
Split into 2 strands. It fell to his knees. She wore a black leather suit that was tight against her body. On her belt held an elongated lightsaber hilt. She reached down and snatched it off her belt. A red blade ignited from each end of the weapon. So another double.
More double people. This was a new thing for... I don't believe that.
But there's at least 4.
God.
Red blade ignited from each end of the weapon. Before we engage in combat, the woman said, What is your name?
Stacy! She answered, holding her lightsaber in reed position.
Mine is Darth Lomas, the woman replied. The last person you will ever see.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh, a threat. Ooh, quite a threat. Here we go.
It still's like every time a new character is introduced. If they're on the Jedi side, Crystal, Joe, Stacy. But then it's like Darth Storm, Darth Salvador, Darth Palin, Darth Lomas. Lomas.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a tiny chapter. Wow.
I know. Chapter 35. Strong. Salvador's cover as Charles has been working perfectly these past few days. Every Jedi in the hideout fell for his disguise 100%. He had spent the first few days of his visit looking for someone strong enough in the light side of the Force to suit his needs.
Isn't he supposed to be on a mission for them finding
Apparently
Stacy?
he didn't do it.
He just never left. He's just still sitting there for a couple of days, even though they said he'd only have a couple hours to rest.
Right, yep, plot hole. He attended strategy meetings held by the Jedis and started talking to everyone individually while not attracting suspicion. He was turning up nothing. None of these Jedi were powerful enough for what he needed. It was the 4th night of his stay, and he was preparing to leave. He was already packed with what he came here, and was halfway to the exit when he overheard 2 Jedi talking.
She still isn't back yet, one of them said.
Yeah,
she said she was going in search of Joe's killer, the other replied. But it's still unlike her to just run off like that, even though she may have had a personal involvement in the case of an emotional level.
Yeah.
Yeah, she may not have been the most skilled of our Jedi, but she had the strongest connection to the light side of all the Jedi here, the other replied. Salvador stood still, listening intently, waiting for a name. Poor Crystal. She looked to Joe as a father. No, she didn't. She had a crush on the old
She
dude.
looked to Joe as a hunk of man meat.
Sugar daddy. Or just daddy, because he
Just a
he
daddy.
doesn't have much sugar. He's poor as a Jedi.
Yeah, I was like, Jedis don't have much sugar, but,
Yeah.
you know.
Salvador had heard that name several times during his visit. From what he was able to gather, Crystal was a very promising Jedi Knight who lacked skill but made up for it in power in connection to the light side of the Force. So you had found someone.
Mm-hmm.
If they're all saying, hey, this girl's strong, but stupid.
But
Lacking in
stupid.
skill. But he was going to leave because he hadn't found anyone. But he's been hearing about her already, so he has found someone. Outer. From what he heard of his battle experiences, the light side seemed to always favor her over her opponents and always show her the way to victory that hurt less people. Okay. A tiny grin appeared on Salvador's face. If this Crystal was truly going after the man who killed Joe, then she would go back to the scene of the crime, the hotel in New York. If he moved now, depending on her day of departure, he could get there before her and meet her face to face. She left days ago. You've been staying there for days. She'd be there.
Yeah.
Whatever. Meet her face to face. This was the light of hope that he needed. This is
Oh.
what he required. He could feel his ultimate goal getting closer and closer as he walked towards the exit. Him and this crystal girl would be the key to the apocalypse. Ooh.
Ooh.
Ooh. Light of hope.
Chapter 36. Lust. Darth Lamas
Lesbians.
Ooh, I hope so. Leapt forward, her twin-bladed weapon spinning as she whipped through the air. She came down on Stacy hard with a massively complex and advanced barrage of attacks. She used the 2 blades of her weapon to push Stacy back further and further until she was about to be pinned against a wall. Stacy was forced to the defensive. She blocked each blade as it came, but found it near impossible to find an opening in her offense. She thought she'd spotted an opening for her to attack Lomas would move... Once she thought she'd spotted an opening for her to attack Lamas, would move her second blade to the exact position, blocking Stacy's chances of going on the attack. Stacy blocked a slash at her legs and threw the blade aside and ducked out of the way as the second blade soared overhead. Still ducked down, she swept with her feet at Lamas's feet, trying to knock her off balance. Lamas simply jumped backwards and thrust out with the force, throwing Stacy, slamming against the wall and almost losing... Or is that loosing?
It says loosing, yes.
And almost loosing her grip on her weapon.
They just always spell that word wrong.
Stacy was momentarily dazed. Her vision started to go blurry, and she started to see two of everything. She could feel her head pounding as she slowly took a step forward. With her right hand still wrapped around the hilt of her lightsaber, she placed her left hand on her head and tried to focus her vision to singular, not multiple. She saw two Lomases standing across the other room facing her down. She stumbled as she took another step forward. The forced slam against the wall knocked out more of her than she thought.
There's something special. There's something about you, Loma said from across the room. Something special.
Lesbians.
Stacy shook her head, trying to try and clear it of the double vision and the pain.
Don't know what you mean! She replied in a low voice that seemed to echo off the walls of the room.
Low. You do this against your heart, Lamas went on. Your heart tells you to stop, but your will says differently. It tells you to go on.
You know nothing about me! Stacy snapped back. Nothing at all!
I know that you do this not of your own consent, Lamas replied. I mean, she totally did it of her own consent. She consented to this.
She
decided to.
Yeah.
So, okay. I know that you were once a promising Jedi until a few days ago. I know that you now take orders from a Sith, she explained. But what Sith is it that is attempting this genocide, I do not know. You are good at protecting the important things in your mind, she added with a slight grin. Very impressive.
You don't live long enough to care about them anyways! Stacy dashed forwards and pressed her own attack.
Care about what?
Yeah.
Oh, the impressive things? Or what?
I don't know.
You won't live long enough? I don't know.
You don't live long enough is not worded well, but it's fine. Lamas blocked each attack with her double-bladed weapon as they came, spinning and leaping out of the way of some while blocking the others with her blades. Stacy pressed her attack, drawing on her anger at the fact that she could not even touch her opponent. Lamas's defense was strong, perhaps too strong for Stacy to penetrate. If that was so, then how could she defeat the Sith Lord without Salvador? Salvador could do this, she told herself. He could take this Sith and win. If he could do it, then I can too.
Okay.
She exchanged power and strength for skill and speed as she continued her attack. The change in strategy seemed to have caught Lamas off guard for a moment. She had to increase the speed of her blocks after Stacy's blade almost slipped through her guard. Stacy may not have the power that the Sith Lord had, but what she does have is skill, and the speed to make that skill very deadly. Stacy attempted a neck slash, which Lamas blocked. Lamas pushed Stacy's blade away from her, then leapt in the air and performed a spin kick that threw Stacy off her feet. Stacy was... Are you done? Like, is it over?
Yes.
Stacy was blown off her feet by the sheer power behind that kick. She landed about 20 meters away from her opponent. She quickly recovered and stood up straight. She saw Lamas standing next to her throne in the center of the room. She shut down her double-bladed weapon, and Stacy could feel her gather the force, so Stacy shut her weapon down and started to do the same. The sound of ripping and tearing metal tore Stacy's eyes open. The throne in the middle of the room was being ripped from the ground with the power of the force. She stared at it for only a moment before it shot at her like a torpedo. She tried to put up a force shield to deflect the massive metal object, but she could not do it fast enough. She merely dive-rolled to the side as the throne shot past where she had just been standing. She recovered from her roll and flicked her lightsaber back on and charged at Lamas. Lamas stood still, her weapon still deactivated at her side. Sensing something was wrong, Stacy turned around and was lifted off the air by the throne smashing into her chest. Yikes. She was pushed through the air across the room. She was about to smash into a wall, and with this mass of metal about to pin her to the wall, her insides would have been turned to soup at the impact. Using all the force and physical strength she could gather. By the way, I've never heard of things like your internal organs turning to soup. It's a weird analogy.
I mean, like, if they're crushed by the impact.
Oh, and it just all... Yeah, okay.
It's all, like, pulverized
Gotcha.
into soup.
Yikes. Using all the force and physical strength she could gather, she put her hands on the throne and pushed herself downward towards the ground. Moments after she pushed off, the throne smashed into the metal wall and tore a massive hole in it. The impact of being lifted off the ground by that thing was not without injury. One of her ribs, maybe even both, were fractured, and she could sense some internal bleeding. She only has 2 ribs? Maybe even both of her ribs. Wow. All right.
Like the entire rib cage, I guess.
Yeah, I'm thinking they mean
half.
like halves. Oof. She only had a few more minutes before she did. Probably a minute before she faints. Lamas shot forward and stopped feet where Stacy lay on the ground. Lamas took out her double-bladed lightsaber and activated one of the blades.
Let this be a message to the ones pulling your strings, she started to say. The Sith will never fall to one of our own. She thrust the blade down at Stacy's chest. Blood splattered on Stacy's face as the blade pierced the body. Lamas stood above her, blood coming out of her mouth. My character just died again, I think.
Oh my god!
A red blade through her chest. Her grip on her double-bladed weapon faded, and the hilt collapsed to the ground and deactivated. Yeah, my character just died again.
Who did it?
I think it was Stacy. Moving her hands to the hole in her chest, Lamas fell to her knees. Stacy slowly pushed herself up to her feet. She walked over and pulled the blade out of Lamas's chest and held her in her hands. Blood was pouring out of the hole in Lamas's chest as she caught blood on the floor. So Stacy was like on the ground and she was like gonna stab her for a blow, but Stacy got her first, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Like if she activated the lightsaber and just like
Got it. That's what
they were
happened.
trying to make it very ambiguous for a second, but they didn't really manage to say what happened after that.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
But yeah, she somehow stabbed her. Chest and elder hands. Blood sprung out of the hole in Lamas's chest as she coughed blood onto the floor. She strained to look behind her at the girl who was able to defeat her. I can feel it now, she managed to say. What you really want. What you really lust for.
I told you before, Stacy said, angling her blade towards the fallen Sith's neck. You know nothing about me. She plunged the blade through the neck. Darth Lamas's body fell to the collapsed to the floor. Let me read that again. Darth Lamas's body fell to the collapsed to the floor. Can you not be drunk outside of my windows at 10 p.m.? Thank you.
11.
Yeah. Stacy shut down her weapon and stared at what she had just done. She looked at the dead body in front of her, the dead body she had just caused, and felt little to nothing. Slowly she was getting used to the idea and actions of taking another's life. She clipped her lightsaber back onto her belt and marched out of the outpost. There were still a few more she needed to get to.
So she killed the 35 people already?
But doesn't she have... Isn't Stacy internally bleeding?
Yes.
So she's almost gonna faint, but now she's just storming out?
No, she's fine. She's fine.
I don't get it.
She's walking 20 minutes to the desert back to her car with internal bleeding and broken ribs.
I don't get it. Do you think this is doable in 10 minutes? Want to shoot for it or not? Sure. All right.
I don't mind if it's more than an hour long episode.
Okay. Cool. Then we'll do one last chapter.
Or we can just read fast. Chapter 37. Exposure. Crystal stood atop a roof overlooking where Joe had been killed by the Sith. Was I reading last?
No, I was. I was.
Okay, yeah. The scene had been well taken care of. No signs of the battle remained. The pavement had been repaved, the building fixed perfectly, and all witnesses either did not see anything or vanished from their rooms. She'd hoped to get to this... Yeah, it's a hotel. They're not going to stay there for, like, longer, just...
Right?
Just to be available to you when you come check it out, like, a week later. She'd hoped to get to the scene before it was fully cleaned, but that goal was long gone one now. She got down on one knee and closed her eyes, trying to reach out with the Force to find any clues left behind by the mysterious Sith. After several moments, she decided it was worthless. She could feel nothing through the Force. Any traces the Sith left behind either vanished or were destroyed by the Guardians. She stood up and decided that even against the odds, she would still search the area. The Guardians are not perfect. They could have missed something. Meanwhile, on the other side of New York, Rick, director of the Guardians... I thought it was his last name for a second. But I'm assuming it's meant to be a comma. Rick, director of the Guardians.
Got it.
Rick, director of the Guardians. Sat comfortably in his chair, drinking from a small glass. Someone barges into the room.
Oh. You can be this person.
Sir, turn on Channel 4 News, the person yelled. Rick slowly turned around and flicked on his TV to Channel 4.
I don't know. Do you want to be the reporter? What do we
Strange
want?
beings among us, the news reporter was saying. The video was taken approximately 4 days to a week ago. In this video, you can clearly see two unidentified individuals having some form of confrontation with a kind of laser-type swords. Ooh. These individuals, also in a clip coming up here, picked up large objects such as post boxes. That's not very large.
Yeah.
You can pick that up with your hands.
Yeah.
Light posts, cars, and even people without their hands. The report explained as the video rolled over the screen. At this point in the video, you can clearly see one of the individuals fire some form of electricity from his fingertips. This is only one report of a steadily growing number of reports of strange human beings with seemingly superhuman powers and abilities, the reporter continued. The police have declined to comment on the video evidence at this time. Rick sat in his chair, watching the fight of the one Sith who had attempted to kill him back in his old office in Darthstorm. So she's gonna see him on TV and be like, yo.
Ooh.
I mean, if she's in a room with TV.
Right.
In his old office in Darthstorm. He leaned back in his seat and took a final shot of his drink before placing the glass on his desk in front of him. What should we do, sir? The man who had burst in asked.
Verbal accounts of such incidents are near impossible to believe unless there is evidence, Rick began. However, video accounts are extremely credible. The video of the fight between those two Siths has now been broadcast throughout the whole New York City. This will be hard, if not impossible, to cover up, he explained.
So, what should we do?
We revealed the existence of the Jedi and the Sith. Let the public decide whether they believe us or not, he answered.
Huh.
The Sith are gearing up for an inevitable war. The human population need to know who the enemy is before the real battles between humans and Force humans begins, he explained. Arrange a press conference for 10 minutes from the moment you walk out of that door.
10 minutes?
He ordered. That's not enough time.
They can't even get there by then.
That's not enough time. He ordered.
Even if you live next door to, like,
Yeah,
press.
no, 10 minutes is not enough goddamn time.
Yes, sir, the man replied, walking out of the room. Rick walks over to his window and looks out over the city.
Time to begin, he whispered to himself with a slight smile on his face. The man walked back in the room.
The conference has been set up, sir, he stated. He left. Rick walked to his window, said time to begin, and by then he came back and was like, hey, conference is ready.
Jesus Christ.
They're waiting for you. Rick nodded his approval of the news, and the man exited the room. Rick made his way out of the room and down the hall to a large conference room where several TV news cameras were set up along with several dozen reports, with miniature tape recorders waiting his speech. No! It's been like 30 seconds.
It's been not enough time, man.
He walked up to the podium and cleared his throat. The cameraman gave him a countdown with his fingers. 3, 2, 1. A green light appeared on the camera, indicating they are live on the air from his moment on. Isn't the light usually red?
The light's red. This
Yeah.
person, the light is red.
Yeah.
Fellow citizens of New York, Rick began. Today you have been confronted with evidence that most of you will now believe, but I think that it is time the truth surfaced amongst the ocean of lies that have been rained down over it. Many of you are probably questioning the authenticity of the video you have seen on the news, questioning whether it was a hoax or just part of some movie that is in production. I assure you that was no movie or hoax. It was as real as it could ever get, he explained. All the reporters in the room started yelling their own questions while shoving their tap recorders up so they could get a clearer take of his voice. Rick pointed at a reporter. "Question," he said.
He would say more than that before asking for questions.
This is a 10...
He would start explaining, like, the Jedi and stuff, and then ask for questions.
This was set up in, like, seconds.
They teleported into the room from their homes and got dressed and stuff. I'll be the reporters. All of them. "Just what are these things?" the reporter asked.
Oh my god, I'm so sorry. "They are human beings with a unique ability to do things that most of us can never even get close to
We
do.
didn't think of them as humans before.
Whether that be in real life or in our dreams," he answered. "They are human beings with a hunger for more power than they possess, and a hunger for domination over normal humans," he added.
Are you sure? Can you prove that? They've been living among you for, like, however many years, and they haven't taken over yet.
Right?
So you're saying these people will start a war with the rest of the world? Another reporter blurted out.
"They already have," Rick answered.
Why is the public finding out about this now? Exactly how long has this war been going on without our knowledge?
"How long?" he
Fighting
repeated.
each other, not you.
"Millenniums. As to why the public is finding out about this news, about his now, we kept it in the dark to avoid mass panic among the public. A panic will only make our job harder," he answered.
And what job is that?
"Taking care of these people before they can start doing what they have recently started," he answered.
And what is that?
"Killing us normal humans with no remorse, no pity, and no mercy. He answered, "We would like to ask the public to please remain calm and to reassure them that all that is being done to stop these people are being done. Thank you."
We're trying to do our job taking care of these people before they start doing what they've recently started doing. Killing us with no remorse, no pity, and no mercy. Please don't panic.
Please don't panic. Bye. He ended walking away from the podium and out of the room. He made his way back to his room.
That was really short
and locked
gave
the
them
door
no
behind
information.
him.
He didn't tell them who they were.
It was prepared in 30 seconds.
But he's the one who set it up. He should have been pre-ready. And he apparently thinks he did a good job.
He made his way back to his room and locked the door behind him. A figure was in the middle of the room, knelt down on one knee. You can be the figure.
It's just a random person. I don't know if it's a male or a female.
We'll figure it out.
I have done as you have requested, Master! The figure said.
I hope it's some gruff, burly dude. Oh god. "This is only a first step. The next steps will be easier and harder at the same time," Rick replied, walking past the still kneeling figure. "You have done well releasing that tape of the fight. It has helped our cause."
Thank you, Master! The figure replied, slowly standing up. Should I begin stage 2?
"Yes," Rick answered, looking out the window of his room. "Start killing people with the Force and lightsabers in front of people so they can see. It will increase the normal human beings' hatred for the Force humans, and that will eventually lead to a revolution against them," he explained. The figure bowed.
As you wish! The figure vanished into the darkness of the room. Rick stood still, staring out of the window, a smile on his face.
"While doth Paulin waste his time on this rogue Sith, I gain control over the general public and ensure the extinction of the Force-sensitive humans. Well, near extinction, anyway."
Fun!
Oh, because he's not gonna die. He's gonna be the only one left, and then he'll rule the world, I think is his plan. It's not a good one.
He's already told us his plan, so yeah. That was like 10 chapters ago, wow.
He's finally acting on it, so
Not
there's
more.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's been just shy of an hour. Well, this video will probably be an hour, but
Yeah, in like,
Um,
30
yeah.
seconds. 40 seconds.
Maybe I can wrap this up real fast. We'll see. I don't know. Anywho, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be continuing this fic next week. If you guys have a fic suggestion, please feel free to leave it down below. Like the video if you liked it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get those dank notifications. And yeah, until next time, stay awesome, read more smut. Bye.
Bye.
You gonna hold it? Oh, so close.
I could have made it, but I don't know. Bye.